Welcome everybody, welcome. My name is Omar Brown. I am the admin for the Natron Nation group on Facebook. So recently I had posted a picture about, not a picture, well, there's a picture and a video of me doing like a simple little camera tracking by using the CornerPin tool that's been exported directly from the Natron tracker. So without further ado, let me just go ahead and basically get into it. Now, what I'm going to cover today is something that's a little bit more on the intermediate side, but it's actually very simple, even for beginners. So let me just go ahead and right now, let me bring in some footage. And this footage right here is going to be called the CP footage because I call it the CP footage because I had exported out these individual camera frames or sequence images from a file that had these particular trackers, and I'm going to be creating a keyframe. No, not a keyframe, more like a corner pin. That's why it's called CP footage, corner pin footage. So I'm going to left click on this and click on open. Then I'm going to pipe it to the viewer node, and as you can see right here, there's this particular footage of this particular person here that is moving this particular item all the way around with all these tracking markers. Well, I'm not going to do the full thing here. All I'm going to do is probably grab the first 100 frames just to give you an idea of how to use this particular effect or this particular workflow. So what I'm going to do is knock this thing here down to 100 frames. Then I'm going to go down to 100 frames. Click on that. Now I'm going to go to the settings right here. Make sure that this right here is 100 frames because this is the project frame range, and I'm going to lock this particular frame range. Now this right here is a sequence image, but no, it doesn't really matter if I made it the user 24 or 35 or 25, but just to keep the consistency, the actual footage was 25 frames per second. So let's create the project to be 25 frames per second. This right here is a HD file, not a full HD, so this 1280 by 720, whereas you notice a full HD is 1920 by 1080. So now we have it right here in the range. It's starting at one, and it's going to be ending at 100. Let's do like a nice little cache frame into the memory. And as we are watching this thing here while it's caching, you're going to notice that certain parts of this particular image here has like shadows. So if anybody have experience with Blender or any other kind of camera tracking software, like say Synthesize or what's the name of the other one called PF Track, and there's another one that I love a lot that's been used in a lot of high-end film. It's called 3D Equalizer. Those are the high-end boys. So it's not to get into those, but these right here inside Natron is good for two-track tracking or motion tracking. Now, eventually I will do another full-scale or other series of this camera tracking node. And I will explain the differences where sometimes they're used interactively, whereas that there's motion tracking and then there's camera tracking. So without further ado, let me just basically do this little simple motion tracking here. And we're going to be tracking these particular points. And from here, this thing here seems already been cached into the memory. So what I want to do right now is actually bring in the tracker node, which is in the transform category or folder. And we're going to come down here to tracker. Now, I want you to look very carefully across the top here. We have all these individual parameters here. So I'm not going to go over everything, but basically for right now, what I'm going to be using for this particular track, I'll be explaining those things along the way because it's like all these things here has their own particular purpose. Okay, now let's talk about these things right here. These right here basically, I use a lot. And you see this particular point that says center view. Basically what that is, it will allow you, once you click on this, any particular track that you have or you assign to a marker, it's going to keep that particular section in frame with the size of the track. And that's what's going to be mostly moving around the particular screen. So the same thing you basically have experience inside Blender if you use other open source software, where if you press Control L, I believe, what happened is that the whole frame, the tracker doesn't move around the frame. It's like the frame is moving to the tracker. What it does, it locks that tracker or that marker to the center of the frame. All right, so you see basically that everything is tracking around that marker, even though it's tracking, but it seems like everything is just having to move around that particular marker. Now I'm going to come over here to this next section here where it says create key on move. And what this here does is that whenever you happen to be tracking and you're going to move your marker to some other place, it will automatically create a keyframe, which is very important because sometimes basically that what I'm going to be showing you in a few minutes is that you may have like a lot of motion blur, dealing with those rolling shutter issues where that your tracker may be moving over here and over here and over here, and sometimes the thing is moving so much and all that distortion going on with the compression, you may have to keyframe each one of the particular things there of your tracker. So therefore, when the thing is go to a solving or is going through its its iterations of trying to get the right track and the right robust path for your tracker, you may have to create those keyframes. Okay, so this next thing here, I'm gonna get my pointer here where it says right here, show error. I cannot say how important this is because it's been very important to me, because there was some time that before I even knew what that was, or before understood what that was, I was always getting like these particular bad tracks. And I had, at one point, I'm like saying, how can I know that this was a bad track without going to the curve editor? So this right here would allow you to see the actual, the quality of your track while it's tracking. Everything that's in green is perfect. Everything that's complete red, bad track. Everything that's in yellow, going back and forth, stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? The track is kind of questionable. So I would advise you to basically have that on there. Okay? Now, let's keep going. Okay, up here we have like the default pattern size, and also do we have the search area. Well, let me just go ahead and just do a track. But before I create a track, I want to bring you up to this section here where it talks about the models. Now we have trans, we have trans rotation, we have trans scale, we have trans rotation scale, and affine. Now these things right here I will be explaining more in detail, or I'll get a chance to show you or give you a link later on to my PDF tutorial I've written about these particular things here. But what we're going to be doing right now is working with the translation, rotation, and scale. Okay, and the reason why I'm choosing that, because if you look exactly what's going on here, let me like put this back into view here. If you see what's going on here, these markers are, once you see, yes, they are translating, and if you think about it too a little bit, that the way he's holding or moving the particular board here with the markers, it has like a little small rotation a little bit if you look very carefully. And at the same time too, they have like a scale, because you see how it's getting closer and closer to the camera, because the camera is on a tripod. Okay, it's locked down. Only thing that's moving is actual object there. All right, so that's why I want to use the translation, rotation, and scale, because I want to capture the translation, I want to capture the rotation, and I want to capture the scale. That's what's moving closer and closer to the screen. So what I want to do is this. Here is the somewhat, like I say, intermediate part, but it's actually very basic. What I've noticed, and I had did a previous track with this with another software, not another software, with the same software, and I have noticed is that there's a lot of motion blur going on in these particular things here. There's a lot of like compression down at the pixel level. These things here, so you get that close right here. I mean, yes, we in very close there, but you can see how the picture actually start to break down even when we scale out or scale up. So what I want to do here is something what I've been talking about before. So I'm going to hold down Control and Alt, get a little closer there, Control and Alt, and you see that my cursor right there turns to a little box. Now that right there is an indication that I'm about to create a tracker. So let's click on that. So what do we see here? See what they're talking about, the default pattern size and default area size? Well, we have two sections, two areas. We have this area right here that's outside the square. It's known as the search area. And then we have like the default pattern section, which is this section right here. Okay, this is the default here, 21 by 71. But at the same time too, remember, you can increase the size of these things right here. Okay, because I want all this right here to basically be captured. Now, this is, understand that this is not some rule of thumb that it has to be done this way. Some trackers are know some markers and things like that are smaller. They have different kind of shapes and all that good old stuff. So the default 21 or default 71 is not a rule of thumb. It just happens to say, okay, hey, it defaults to that stuff. You can be able to see it. You can really put a tracking mark, and you can go ahead and continue. There's going to be times where it's at this particular section here where it have to be increased to fit over your marker or make smaller just to get the corners and stuff here. And so there are times where it's that you can have, like, say, a relatively small default search pattern, but a default pattern size, but a large default area size, because sometimes, like, your information that's inside here is moving all over the place. This right here needs to be big enough so therefore it can have enough area to search where that particular pattern is moving within the frame. Now, here's what I like to do. What is keyframe pattern tracking? Well, here's the thing. When you're dealing with different kinds of footage and stuff like that, your markers can be moving all over the place. And when you go and do a keyframe, in this case, you can keyframe your actual point of where, letting the tracker know that this is where this marker is at this point in time. So it can do like a little spline or path to those particular areas, because you've already supervised the track. So if you ever anybody hear this term, now you may hear this term inside Blender if you use Blender as open source software. Supervise is like says you go and you automatically and you create a keyframe where those markers basically is going to be, and this will help the tracker to know exactly where it is. Okay, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to go back to the end of my keyframe, my sequence here, and click on that. Now you see that right there, it was a major difference from where it was from here and to here. So I'm going to keyframe this last frame here. That's letting Natron know, the tracker know, that in the end of the 100th frame, this is where this track is supposed to be. And you come back to the beginning, that's exactly where that's supposed to be. And I normally basically do like 4 keyframes depending on the quality of the footage itself. So I'm going to come directly to 50, because 50 is the middle of the actual sequence. I'm going to put that right there. Then I'm going to come over here to 25. I'm going to put that basically right there. And I'm going to come over here to 75. I'm going to put that right over here. Now, here's the thing about the Natron tracker as I'm creating all these individual tracks. Natron is not like all these other 2D trackers that you will find in programs like After Effects and probably like some other 2D compositing applications out there, even basically with Nuke. Now, inside Natron, we had a thing that's called like when it comes to the CornerPin, what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be taking a picture, and I'm going to have it basically follow all this plane right here. Remember, every time you start to track, you are tracking a plane. Okay, and that's how basically is the best way to understand how the CornerPin basically works inside Natron, because other programs that allows you to do like CornerPin tracking, you only have like those 4 pins. But see, inside Natron, it's not like even though it says it's a CornerPin, it's not like it's using only four markers or trackers to create that 4-pin area. Inside Natron, we had a thing in basically something called similarity or homography, where they're saying that, hey, based on the particular area that you are tracking, the more markers that you put into that particular area, and anywhere particular this particular board here, the more robust your track would be, because it's capturing more information. And that's what you're going to start dealing with along the way when it comes to something that we call planar tracking. Planar tracking is the only thing, in plain simple rules or ideal of that, ideology, is that everything is on a plane. So like my hand here is a plane. When I take my hand based out this way, it's a plane. If I turn it to the side here, this right here is basically a plane. So right now I'll get more detailed mostly about that and more advanced tracking inside Natron. So basically right now I got to have all these little keyframe tracks here, and I know basically around the particular end here there's it tends to be like a little small wobble So I want to basically make sure this right here is in the center of that. Let me come back to the beginning, and I'm going to press this particular button here. I'm going to set a keyframe there just in case it didn't do it automatically. Like I say, inside Natron, you can never have enough tracks when you're doing a keyframe, a corner pin tracking, because the more tracks you have for doing corner pin tracking, the more robust it is. All right. Now this right here, yeah, I can say it's a little bit of an overkill, but I just want to put enough in there to show you exactly what's going on here. So all through this particular thing, timeline here, you see that we have, let me bring this back up. We have keyframed each section to track and know where exactly all these markers here is going to be. And you say, okay, well, what's going to happen here after this track? Well, all I'm going to do right now is come up to this section right here and tell it track all keyed frames, okay, across all pattern keyframes. So all this is the pattern keyframe here. So I'm going to click on that button right there, and look how fast that track was right there. Now, here's the issue right here. It noticed basically around the end here that there was a failed track. There's sometimes you're basically going to have that. I probably didn't set up basically properly, but at the same time too, I probably didn't have like the search pattern out good far enough, because remember the thing here was moving around, so probably that I didn't capture, create a good keyframe there. So to come back to this, I'm going to come back to right about there to where it seemed like where the actual keyframe had failed. Now you see how this thing has basically gotten smaller. So what I'm going to do is click on this and create a keyframe right there. And I'm not that far from the end of the frame, so I can just do it manually. Just go clicking one track at a time and say, look here, even though you don't do the full track, you can always go back and do a manual track. Now let's look at this section right here. There's like a little yellow in that section right there. So let me come back over basically this way. It's probably like more towards the beginning. And I'm going to start like right here, or probably like right there, where it seems like I see like a little yellowish green there, and I'm going basically to track forward. You know, say, well, basically, what is the difference between the letting track automatically, or as opposed to like saying you doing the individual keyframe? Like I said, the automatic tracking, like the frame assessor, this thing is basically doing is going to the next track to the next track. Basically what it's doing is trying to capture all the information that I had here within the keyframe. And like I said, it could be human error, or it can just be like some of the settings over here that just need to be a little bit more robust and everything else. But I can say this. I've noticed before, and I told you earlier, that all this right here, on this plane here, has like a luminance issue. Whereas that he's taking the thing, he's moving around, and you know it's casting shadows upon this thing here. Now, in order to help me to not to be causing any particular errors with that to some degree, to make it a more robust track, come over here to see that says normalized intensities. Now if you bring our pointer directly over that, it's going to say this: normalize the image patches by their mean before doing a sum square error calculations. Now this thing is, yes, it's going to be slower, but it's going to give you a more robust track. And what that's saying here is that sometimes you're going to have like a little shadow. Maybe your hand is over something, light is casting over a marker. And regular trackers, once they start tracking that, and that shadow comes over that, it throws it off because it doesn't know what to do with that. So what this thing is, with the normalized intensities, what it's doing, it normalizes the actual image itself. So it doesn't matter if any shadows, where the case may be, that may come over it, it's still going to keep a pretty good track on that. Now, I'm not saying that anything that's going to occlude the tracker is still going to be in the frame, but what's happening is sometimes you can have like luminous discrepancies and things like that that may kind of throw off the tracker, and that's what that internal mathematics, whatever they had programmed or coded into this thing here to make it more of a solid and more robust track. So let's keep on going on to the rest of these individual tracks right here. Doesn't matter which way you go. So I'm going to come back to the beginning. I'm going to put a tracker here. And at the same time too, I'm still going to keep the thing on rotation and scale. Okay, keep that there. Increase that. Now I'm going to, like I said, come to the end. I'm going to go through each one of these things right here with you so you see exactly how I'm doing it. So this way you won't think I'm cheating with another software and all that stuff like that, and just bringing in the track. No, I won't do that to you. Okay, put that there. Now I'm going to do the same thing over here. Put that there. Just to speed this up here a little bit, I'm going to try to get much tracks as I possibly can inside there. Move that like right there. I'm going to increase this right here a little bit. Come to here. Put that right there. Come to 25. Come to the beginning. Mark it right there. What I'm going to do is probably increase that a little bit. Now, also, too, what I'm going to do, I'm going to track these edges here as well. Okay, but I track those basic a little later. Now, I got all those things inside this, so let's keep on going. Now, you see all these particular tracks here. It is great that this guy had put all these tracks on this particular board, or whatever he basically is rotating. Just put that there. And as you see across the top right here, every time I create a keyframe, it keeps track of the keyframe all across the screen there. So if you ever be seeing yourself doing any kind of tracking, and you notice that those things right there seems to be getting built up across the top, those are only keyframes, so don't be afraid. Okay, those right there are your visual references into what frame, it basically say what areas of your track is doing what. Okay, I'm going to put that there. I'm going to come over here, put that there, come to the beginning, put that there. So far we got these things here done. Okay, I'm going to do this right here. Okay, I'm coming to the end. You see right there, you notice right there, it made a difference in the size, and also too, as well as the quality of that marker. You know, so if you also too, like I said before, these keyframes basically helps a lot, because you see every time I go to a particular frame, the marker will have to move in a lot of areas just to keep track of this thing, of all these individual features. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this, select this one, select that, select that, select that, and select this. Then I'm going to tell it, okay, all these things right here, track keyframes, all the keyframes on the selected tracks. Okay, not bad. All right, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, we got all those particular tracks right there. So let me go ahead and do this. Okay. Now, if this right here seems to be taking a little long for you while I'm doing this, please, when I upload this thing here, just write in the comments. I just want to show you exactly what I'm doing in here, step for step in workflow, as you see how everything is going down. So hopefully you're not missing anything. Now, there's going to be many of you who are already familiar with this kind of tracking and this keyframe, probably using programs like Synthesize or PF Track or 3 Equalizer. Those particular trackers they're beasts. I mean, they can track a worm on the ground if you had the right thermal stuff going on for it to track it. It's ridiculous, but you can still get a lot done with just this tracker directly here inside Natron. Natron is how the developers all say it is. Okay, so I got this thing over here to go. Let's do this. Let's go to the beginning. And here's the thing. It doesn't matter where you start with the keyframe. Because you see I'm starting here at 1. And if I go to the end, it's going to automatically keep track of the numbers to where these the trackers are and what frame you clicked on. See what it says track 9, frame 1. I did it again at the end. Track 9, frame 50. I mean frame 100. So if I come over here and move this right here, it automatically know where to put these particular frames in their keyframes when it comes to tracking. Because it's not going to jump around. It's going to create everything in an order, in a succession. Okay. All right. So now let me go ahead and select these 3 and say track. All keyframes. Now, another thing too, you see what I got my marker, where my thing is here in the timeline. It doesn't matter where your where you put the tracker, because you're going to tell it to track all frames anyway, because it's always going to start at the beginning and move forward. Okay, it did all that. Now you see over here, it keeps track of all these things here. Now keep in mind. Okay, let me bring this here out a little bit. This right here are the errors and things like that. Now, what you want to try to do when you come to tracker, you want to try to get the lowest errors possible. Anything above 1 is bad, very bad. So as you track, and always try to keep those particular errors there, and based on the certain type of model that you track, because not all these models will work on the same footage equally. They all have their own purposes and all have all their own strengths. I'm happen to be using everything that happen to be the translation, rotation, and scale, because I know there's a lot of translation, rotation, and scaling going on in this particular image. At the same time too, I noticed also I had to put in this normalized intensity, because if you look very carefully, there's a lot of shadows and luminous differences going on from frame to frame. So to keep the tracker to be robust and not lose its pattern in tracking and everything like that, keep that on there. Like I said, maybe it'd be slower, but it's worth it. So look here. I have tracked all these particular things here. Now, there's two things, other areas I want to track for sure. Now, if you noticed here, these particular areas right here and right here come from experience. Whereas that, yes, I should put some trackers there on these particular corners here, which is basically is really necessary. Put that basically like right there, because when you get ready to do the tracking, this right here and this part right here can make a major difference into when it comes to the homography tracking of this particular image, because everything in this section here could be very tight. But due to the fact that thing here is going through a warping and translation and things like that, this particular section right here may have like a little jump. So keep in mind that when you go to do a keyframe track and you want to try to do a corner pin track, and you tracking a plane like this, as much as any particular area that allows you to put markers there, whatever you can put, any type of pattern that you can like track, put it there, because the more you have, the more information that the Natron tracker will have, and it make it more a robust track. So that's why I'm putting like a tracker here. I'm going to come to the end. I'm going to adjust this right there, come to 50, because I don't like my edges swimming around. Now, for some of you basically who's listening to my voice for the first time, I want to let you know, yes, I am a proud country boy that's in the city right now. So certain words may come out country, but it's all right. I have no problems with it. No, pray that you don't either. So let me go ahead and create one of these trackers in this area here and track it from right there. Now I'm at the beginning, so I'm going to go all the way to the end. If you notice here on this particular side here, when I went to the end on this one, the marker didn't, this corner here didn't have that far to travel as it did with the first one. But that's nothing to worry about. You know what I'm saying? That's just the nature of things just spinning around. Some things going to be closer to the camera than others based on the edges, based on the view of the camera, the perception of view, and all that good old stuff. I don't want to get into too much technical terms here with even things like that, but for those who are videographers, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so now I'm going to take these two things here. I've already created the keyframes. So just tell this thing, okay, now track the keyframes. And everything was tracked. Okay, everything seems to be already here. And see, did I select both of these things here? Yes, I did. So let's look at this track right here. Okay, this thing didn't fully track, so let me go ahead and finish. Click on track all keyframes on this one. Okay, what happened here? Now you see right here, this right here is indication that's saying that you have a failed track. So that's not a problem. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to reset this track here. And I'm going to put that right there. Come back to the beginning and put that basically right there. Come to the end. Put that right there. Come to the middle. Put that right there. Let's see how well it's going to do this. A little bit of keyframe track just for this little bit of information here. Wow, this thing here is truly failing with me this time. I wonder what's going on with why this track is doing that. So, all right, so let me click on reset again. So what I want to do here this time is maybe probably just change the model to this right here. And it's like, you know what, let me just keep it here, increase that. No. When you change it here, I don't think it does. It doesn't change this over here. What it does is just say, okay, the next track that you create is just going to be a translation. But I'm going to keep this on here and just increase this right here. I did that. Come over here. Increase that right there. Come to 50. There's no change there. Come to 75 and put that tracker information right there. Come to the end, put this track thing here. Now let's see why. So I'm glad this is happening because it gives you a chance to see exactly some things basically can go wrong, but not like this. Everything in some, like say 90% of the time things can be salvageable when it comes to your tracks. So let's see if by me increasing the pattern area as well as the search area will help me get a cleaner track. I know it worked before on my other ones, but like I said, I'm doing everything basically from scratch here, so I'm gonna keep on going. Wow, this thing here is really giving me a problem here. Oh, okay. You know what? I'm not gonna hold you too much up on this one, so I'm just gonna release this track here, and I'm gonna delete this track out, and we'll still be good. We still got more than enough. All this right here is still good enough information. So at this point right here now, what do we do? So we got to come back up to our tracker and we're going to say, okay, you know what? I want to put a particular image here. So the way we have to do that, we go and do it, especially as a corner pin. We got all this information here that's being tracked inside there. And as you can see here, as I move through the timeline, those markers seems to be solid. They're staying in place. There's no skipping around or nothing like that, which is pretty good. Okay, you know what? I want to try one more thing here. I know I'm killing a lot of time here. You know, I hope you're not getting bored. But I want to get like these corner parts right here, these side parts, to even like make it even more robust track. Like I said, you can never have too many tracking markers when it comes to doing keyframing and planar tracking inside Natron. Okay, let's put this here. Also, too, there's other guys basically on Natron Nation who's doing some marvelous stuff with Blender and using that 3D tracking inside Blender and using Natron's Camera 3D node, where he's bringing in all that 3D data and tracking stuff like that and put it into a 2D plane track to make it seem like it was all tracked inside 3D, inside Blender. I mean, inside Natron. It's real nice. His name is Chris Temple. We'll be, me and Thomas Morley, you know, we're going to, you know, ignite. Well, it's already ignited with Natron, but we're going to be doing some website stuff and some more training materials and things like that to really like capture the hearts of everybody who's really trying to get into compositing. Now, let me first say, too, while I'm putting this other track inside here, this is a disclaimer. By trade, I am an editor. I am not a compositor. I am not a match mover. You know, a match mover is like those basically who does, you know, the camera tracking and everything else for high-end films. You know what I'm saying? That's actually an art in itself. Okay, those guys basically know exactly what they can probably track and know how they can do all the survey data understanding some of these other robust tools to get the perfect track, you know, with rotation, planar data information, how they can like do offset tracking. That's offset tracking is something that's very simple too, but that's going to have to come into another tutorial because I don't have any footage to show you the offset tracking. So now I done did all this right here. Let me go ahead and click on that, make it go through. All right, it is done. So let's keep on going. I know I'm taking a little bit of time here. So we have all these individual tracks. Everything seems to be solid right now. That's good. So I want to double click on this right here. We did all this. Now I want to do is come over here and click on the transform. I want to keep the transform type on CornerPin. Okay. And what I want to do is come to the motion type is put it on match move. And you're going to notice that this little particular rectangle square with these points here, that is the CornerPin like type way of the original, let's say original, even some of these what you call these things, these composite application that has their own 2D tracking inside and do CornerPin tracking. It will only just be like these 4 pins that does all the CornerPin tracking. But if you see right here, all these tracking markers right here is all is being tracked on the plane that is necessary, even great for the Natron CornerPin tracker. Because like I said, the more markers that you have been tracked in a particular area, the better it is for the CornerPin tracking. Because Natron's CornerPin is not like the regular CornerPins. It uses the CornerPin to give you the warp, to warp the image into a particular plane here. But all this tracking data and stuff like that is all been homogenified together, or whatever. That's not even a term or even right, but it's all that data is being captured and laid out within that particular plane there. Okay, but like I said, I get more into advanced details with that, intermediate to advanced details about that a little later. But this is still the basics. So what I want to do here, I want to export the tracking, the CornerPin tracking data out of this into a CornerPin. But what I want to do here first is this. I want to bring in this particular checkerboard here, so therefore you can see exactly how this CornerPin information here is going to work. We don't want that right there, okay? But we don't want this CornerPin to be hooked up to any of this stuff here. We want to have it on its own separate track. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to come to here, and I'm going to come down to the bottom here. I want to export a link to this. I want to click on export. Keep the link there, because when I click on that, it automatically creates a CornerPin node. So I can take this and connect that to that. So what's happened is that whatever changes I make here, and this is the important part, probably the most crucial part that some people basically misunderstand about how to set up a CornerPin, a more robust CornerPin track. When you click on the CornerPin, you don't want to click on this one here. We're not going to deal with that just yet. But what we do want to deal with is this particular corner track here, because we have to set up on the original tracker here and say front. Now this right here are 2. The 2 is the original framework here. But what we want to do, in order for it to have this right here, the CornerPin node, to fit into the tracker CornerPin section here, we must first come here, come over to the from, and make sure we tell it, instead of want the 2, we want the from points to show up here. Now, if I was to move this, you will notice that the whole entire frame is moving there. I don't want the whole entire frame to be moved. I want to disable the CornerPin. Now, just because I'm disabling the CornerPin, it's not going to turn it off. What it's doing is that whenever I move these points right here, the from points to the section where I want this thing here to be laid out on this plane, it's not going to warp the actual image that we are actually adjusting the region of the main from. So I'm going to take this section right here. We're going to put that right there. Hold on, let me take this. Double click on that. Let's take this and put that right there. Okay. You want to be make sure that thing turn green before you start turning anything, and put those right there in the section there. So what we're doing here, we're only using the 4-pin just to lay out the warp data. On the warp data of where this thing is going to reside on this particular plane. But all this other tracking marking status right here is what's going to create or guide the CornerPin node to where things is going to be laid out. and how I just did the reverse engineering of the actual rotation, scale, and translation of this particular object. Okay, scale in, come in here a little bit, right there. Now if you notice here, all this stuff right here is all compression artifacts there, because this thing here was an MP4 file, and I had just exported it out to sequence images here. So therefore, you already know that the MP4 is not the best quality of images to do this kind of work with anyway. And at the same time, too, I want you to notice I got a straight pen here. This is a straight line. But you notice if you come inside here, you see how like the line come on the outside? So I can't put like any particular tangent marker here to warp it. It's not basically necessary. So what you're dealing with here is that it's a camera lens that has like a little barrel distortion. That is a whole new other tracking tutorial basically by itself, even more advanced than the one I'm going to talk about with all these other particular features here. So now what I want to do here first, I want to go ahead and add a merge node here, because I want this particular thing here to be merged over this background. So instead of like hooking this up to this tracker, I want to hook it up to the background. So therefore this right here will be overlaid on top of this. Now I already have this thing here going into the one input, so I can see exactly what I'm doing. But due to the fact I'm getting ready to do a composite with the checkerboard, so therefore you see exactly how the corner pin basically warps the image and allows it to move it along with the tracking information I just did. I'm going to pipe this right here into 2. Now as you can see here, it's like, hey, why is that this thing is not warped yet? Well, remember I had shut down this particular thing here. Now I already had used, coming from the original tracker here, I take these things here, these points here, I said, look here, I want to go from this point to where I want it to be, with it's going to be laid out here. So what I have to do here now to have this right here, region of domain, to follow this particular path right here on this particular plane, I have to double click on this, have to make sure the thing here is on the from, and make that thing basically is on the from on this corner pin node, and I'm going to say set to input, set to input ROD, which just means region of domain, okay, or region of definition in this case, same thing. So I'm going to click on that, set it. And you're like, wait a minute, something didn't happen. The reason why I clicked on that and nothing happened, because we have to go right back to this particular tracker node here. Remember, we had just disabled this particular corner pin. So what I need to do here is take this off and click on the compute button to recompute it. So once I bring back the corner pin, enable it again, take that check mark off, it's not as enabled, click on compute, and automatically you see right there it is now on the plane. So let's play it. And as you can see, all those tracking marks we did with the corner pin, on the plane, it gave us a nice little solid track. Now I can see basically right now that some of these parts here basically is moving, and that's because basically I didn't do enough corner pin tracks, or some of my, and also too some of my markers and things I put on there probably could have been moving around a little bit, and I did not basically double check to make sure everything was completely green. I did recognize on some of the tracks there was some like a little yellow inside there. So when you're doing this, is basically for yourself, be meticulous as possible as you can to make sure that every track you have in there is all green, because you want the most solid track as possible. Okay, now take that there, and we're going to go here. Now you say, okay, that just happens to be just the particular the checkerboard. Suppose you want to put an image there. All right then, and here's one of the things you're going to have to watch out for, because remember, when you input this checkerboard here, it was already on a certain set domain. What's going to happen is that if you were to take this off and add another image that is smaller, or some other image that is bigger, you're going to have to readjust the domain. Okay, so let me go in now and try to load in a different image this time. Let me see, can I go to my desktop? Let me see, can I find something? Let me see, can I go download? Where can I go to my image here? Okay, let's go to documents. Now I'm going to go to where it says graphics. I don't have anything else in here that I can possibly think of, but I'm going to click on, let's go to credits. Is there a credits? That's a PSD credit. Okay, let's go to staff credits one. Just double click on that. And I can tell you right now, this particular image right here is going to be a whole lot bigger than this. So what I'm going to do, to find out how big it is, just to be on the safe side, we can always go to the information window here. And this thing here is telling us that this thing here may be 1920 by 1080. Okay. It's good to know. Let's go to file info, see if it gives any information that might be contrary to that. No, it's still 1920 by 1080. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to take this right here and I'm going to pipe it to this. Now look what happened when I pipe it to that particular area there. You see how this information is outside the range of this path in this corner pin? Even though it's giving me the, still giving me the right track, but it's not fit into my region of domain, a region of interest, or definition there. So how do we fix that? That's when you come right back to the corner pin. And you tell the corner pin, I say, okay, we got a new image now. We now have to see before this thing was 1280. Remember now, this checkerboard automatically, these are the internal images that adjust itself to the settings panel. We have the shows where, well, let me just show it to you right now. When I click on S, see, it was automatically adjusted itself to the output format and so on and so forth. And that's because all these things right here come directly from the image there. So these things will automatically adjust itself to the project settings. But this right here is an external rasterized image. This right here is a 1920 by 1080, which is much bigger than the 1280 by 720. So to get this right here to fit directly into this region of domain here, just double click on this corner pin node you see what I'm doing right here, and click on where it says set input to region of definition. And there you have it. Click on play. All right. That's it for that. But I want to show you one more thing. Due to the fact that we had just exported out this stuff, I want to show you the curve information that is going to be very important here too. So if you can check more of the quality of your tracks. So let's go to the curve editor here. Bring your pointer here over the particular pane over here and hit the space bar. Because we want this thing here to be, and hit the F, we want everything to be into a particular screen here, full view. Now we know this right here is the tracking markers for these are tracking markers for the corner pin. Now I've noticed basically here myself that in one of those particular tracks, see these things right here? These right here should not be having it jumps from here to here. So probably where I had placed my tracking mark, I probably had placed it before or after the start of the one. Probably was giving me that little error there before or some little jiggling. That's not an issue there because, like I said, when you go to do this yourself, you would have that you can eyeball the control over that. So most likely it's probably going to be number 4. Now keep in mind now, this right here is not the 4 point. It's just that all that information that we tracked here, this happened to be all averaged together there with that robustness that was going on there. So you can see a little bit right here. So like I said, these are all basically just trial and error right now. But I want to bring you something here to original tracker. This right here is all this information that's based on the original tracker. But the one thing that when you want to check the quality of your fitting errors, the fitting errors are this. Now, for those basically who are use Blender as a tracker, you notice that when you go to solve, it talks about basically the errors that have anything that's under 3 is the best. But I always try to say, I try to get my stuff under point such and such and such and such. Anywhere between like we'll put from 0 to 0.4 or 5, no more than 0.6, definitely nothing over 1. So that's what that fitting area is here inside Natron. The fitting error is that it keeps an average of the quality of the overall of the whole entire track. So once I click on that, the fitting area is telling me this. All this right here is actually fitting within under 0.5. If you keep your whole entire track robust and solid and everything falls under the 0.5, you have a pretty good solid track. You can get this a little better, based on, because like remember now we had bad quality footage anyway, but to get even more solid than this, you really have to be very painstakingly try to go to each and every 5 to 10 frames to make sure that that track and that thing is basically solid. So when you go to see track keyframes, which is actually to me I feel to be a more control as part of the supervised tracking and everything that's get more of a solid, robust track. Keyframe tracking is probably the best way to go instead of just putting a tracker there and it's like just track all the way through. I mean, you can tracking all the way through from the first frame is all well and good and it's great. But like I said, I like to have a little bit more control when it comes to the corner pin. When you go with the corner pin, it's good to have that, go that extra 5-10 steps to make sure your tracks are solid. Okay, so I'm gonna put my pointer back over this panel here, hit the space bar, bring everything back into view, and just click on play from the top again. I say for the short period of time, it's pretty good solid. It might be a little small shift there, but like I said, it comes to the quality of those tracks I need to put back in there and clean up again. But I think that's pretty smooth. And that is the tutorial. That is the tutorial that I have on the CornerPin tracker. Hope everybody enjoyed. Thank you. And you'll be posted. This thing here will be posted on my YouTube channel. Also, it will also be available on Natron Nation. Also to be posted on NPG, which is the brother site to Natron Nation on Facebook. And also to eventually I'll be posting this right here on to natronforums.natron.fr. So just stay tuned. Thank you. You have a good day.